On my 20th birthday, my boyfriend invited a group of people to celebrate with me. After drinking a glass of wine, my body grew hot. I must have been drugged. I struggled through the strange discomfort to find him, only to overhear his conversation with someone around the corner of the KTV corridor. I never believe in matching family backgrounds. I only trust myself. Willow, I will definitely make you the future mistress of the Chun group. As for Aria Lee, after tonight, the college forum will be flooded with lewd photos of her. She'll become a joke I can control at will. My vision turned dark. This was the man I had loved for 3 years. With nowhere to turn, I tremblingly dialed the number saved under the remark uncle. On the other end of the line was the always cold, composed man, 10 years older than me. Uncle, I feel so awful. I want. There was a moment of silence on the line, then his deep, restrained voice rolled out like smoldering magma. Be good. Send me your location. Stay right where you are. I'll come get you. Dazzling lights spun overhead as I was roughly pushed down onto the soft sofa of the private room. My head spun, my mouth parched. An inexplicable fire burned inside my body. Unconsciously, I began tugging at the collar of my dress, craving a breath of cool air to ease the scorching heat on my skin. I also longed to press against someone's cool skin to calm the raging fire inside me. Hey, can't wait anymore? Let me take good care of you. A strange voice exploded beside my ear, jolting me back to my senses. Something was wrong. I'd been drugged. Today was my 20th birthday. Who would do something like this to ruin me? A strange man pinned me down, shamelessly tearing at my dress. I bit my lip hard until I tasted the metallic tong of blood, clinging to a sliver of clarity. I felt for a bottle opener on the tea table, and used all my strength to smash it against his forehead. A dull groan escaped him. The man clutched his head, blood seeping through his fingers. I pushed him away, pulled my torn dress closed, and fled outside as fast as I could. Call the police? No. Looking like this, I would only be dismissed as a couple who had gone too far, with no way to defend myself. Go home? Even worse. It would only upset and break my parents. The drug grew more potent by the second. Leaning against the wall, I stumbled out of the KTV. The cold wind made me shiver, yet the fire inside me burned even hotter. Now there was only one person I could turn to. Uncle. Uncle, who had just returned from a mission. Felix Liu. Uncle's home was not far from here. He was my father's most trusted subordinate, his closest comrade in arms, and the elder who had watched me grow up. But he had just come back from an overseas mission, and we hadn't seen each other for almost a year. He was also a man of strict self-discipline, filled with the iron-blooded aura of a soldier. If he saw me in this state. Behind me, Fin Chon's shouts and footsteps drifted closer. He had realized I was trying to escape from the private room. She's trying to run? Willow, hurry, don't let her get away. The phone is still recording. Don't worry, Fin, I've got my eye on her. The voice of Willow Song, whom I had always regarded as my best friend, brimmed with excitement. I could no longer hesitate. Summoning all my courage, I rushed into the dark night. With trembling hands, I rang the doorbell. The door opened almost instantly. A unique, cold, clean scent washed over me, like pine forests after snow. I stood at the doorway, nervously staring up at the tall, straight figure before me. After a year apart, Uncle's features were sharper than I remembered, strikingly handsome with an imposing edge. He had a high nose bridge and thin pressed lips. The moment our eyes met, I couldn't help shuddering. My blood ignited like gasoline, bursting into flames, and a numbing itch spread across my entire body. It felt as if ants were crawling over every inch of me. Miserably clutching my tattered skirt, I spoke in a soft, honeyed voice. Uncle, I feel terrible. I'm so hot. The man, who was usually as cold as an iceberg, stared fixedly at me, his dark pupils reflecting my disheveled state. My cheeks flushed, my eyes glistening with tears, my clothes messy and unkempt. Utterly abandoned. The door slammed shut. He pulled me abruptly into the room. The moment our skin touched, the coolness of his arm drew a satisfied sigh from me. All my strength vanished in an instant, and I leaned fully against him. I rubbed against him instinctively, eagerly craving the rare coolness. Fin Chun's chasing voice came from outside the door. Strange, where did she go? I just saw her run into this building. Holding me in one arm, Uncle picked up his phone with the other, his tone icy and indifferent. Hello. Police station of XX district. There is disturbance and provocation in the military family apartment compound. Standing close, I could hear the suppressed tremor in his throat. After a few brief words, he hung up. Police sirens soon wailed from downstairs, and the voices of Fin Chun and his companions faded away. The danger was gone. Leaning in Felix Lu's arms, I tightly clutched his shirt, burrowing deeper into his embrace. I greedily drank in his cool presence. His firm waist, honed by years of training, exuded a fatal allure at this moment. Further down, a restrained low groan escaped him. His scorching large hand pressed mine firmly in place. My heart raced wildly. The world spun in an instant, my skirt fluttering around me. Felix Lu carried me to the bed, his movements gentle and restrained, yet his gaze looked as if he could devour me whole. He reached out with his slender hand to touch my forehead. His Adam's apple rolled violently. Arya, why are you burning up? Don't move. I'll get a thermometer. I shook my head weakly from the discomfort. The drug left me burning up inside. I begged him in a tearful voice, Uncle, I want. Felix Lu stared at me, his throat tightening. His fingertips, rough from years of holding guns, brushed against my wrist. The coarse touch stirred an itchy restlessness in my heart. After a moment he let go of my wrist, his breath unstable as he leaned sharply closer. His unique masculine scent flooded my nose, his tall figure casting a shadow over me. Beneath his presence I melted into soft submission. Arya, you've been drugged. The dosage is incredibly strong, don't be afraid. I'll go buy medicine. Otherwise it will cause permanent damage to your nervous system. His husky voice drifted into my ears, stirring my heart into a flutter. I paid no attention to his words, my entire focus fixed on his thin lips parting slightly as he spoke. Pale in color, yet irresistibly tempting. One small lift of my head and I could kiss them. I swallowed hard and wrapped my arms around Felix Lu's neck. In the sudden contraction of his pupils I saw my long hair spread like a waterfall across the white pillow, looking exactly like a little temptress. A far cry from my usual quiet, well-behaved self. My voice came out in an alluring tone. Uncle, I want you. Felix Lu supported my waist with one hand. His other hand caressed my cheek. Every movement sent tremors through my heart. His eyes were also filled with desire. Arya, do you know who I am? I know. You're my uncle. You're Felix Lu. Good girl, Arya. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. ... Morning light seeped through the gap in the curtains, falling across my face. I had a splitting headache, as if suffering from a hangover. Memories of last night crashed over me in fragmented yet vivid clarity. Felix Lu's scorching warmth, his restrained gasps, and my shameless begging. My cheeks burned instantly. I sat up abruptly, overwhelmed by shame. The room was empty. The air still carried his cold pine scent, mixed with the faint smell of tobacco he smoked. He was gone. An inexplicable emptiness settled in my heart. On the nightstand lay a cup of warm water, a strip of medicine, and a note pressed underneath. The handwriting was sharp and powerful, bearing the resolute style of a soldier. Take the medicine when you wake up. Rest well. Draped over the chair beside the bed was a brand new dress and underwear, still with the tags attached. My face burned even hotter. I fled Uncle's home in a hurry and returned to campus. The moment I stepped through the school gate, I instantly sensed something was wrong. Eyes all around pierced into me like poisoned needles, dense and relentless. Whispers buzzed in my ears like swarms of flies. Look, that's Arya Lee, heard. She went wild at the KTV last night with several men. Poor Fin Chun. His girlfriend, actually. My blood turned icy cold inch by inch. Fin Chun had acted even faster and crueler than I'd imagined. I clenched my fists and quickened my pace, desperate to reach the dormitory, my only safe haven. Yet as I walked beneath the teaching building, a group of people blocked my path. At the front stood Fin Chun. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, a noticeable bandage stuck to his forehead, his haggard face etched with misery. Beside him, Willow Song supported him with a look of feigned sympathy. When she saw me, a trace of triumph flashed quickly across her eyes. At the sight of me, Fin Chun looked as if he had spotted something filthy, his eyes filled with disgust and hurt. He pointed at me, his voice trembling with agitation, acting as if he were the real victim. Aria Lee, how dare you come back? The crowd erupted into murmurs, all eyes locking onto me. I watched his clumsy performance coldly. As if stung by my gaze, he stepped forward sharply and shouted at the top of his lungs. You messed around with some random man all night last night. What else do you have to say for yourself now? I loved you so much, and this is how you repay me? I've already told the counselor. The school must punish a morally corrupt student like you severely. Every word was a poisoned dagger, stabbing straight into my heart. The surrounding whispers wove into an inescapable net. I shivered all over, trembling with rage. This was the man I had loved for 3 years, distorting the truth, utterly shameless. Beneath everyone's gaze, I calmed down instead. Facing his hypocritical face, I curled my lips into a cold smile. Oh? Really? Then let's call the police. The moment I spoke, the air seemed to freeze. Fin Chun's face turned crimson with rage, clearly never expecting me to dare to do such a thing. The crowd's whispers exploded like salt poured into boiling oil. Call the police? How dare she? She must be guilty, just trying to scare everyone. Just then, a middle-aged woman wearing glasses pushed through the crowd. She was our counselor. Her face was filled with disappointment, her gaze sharp as it landed on me. Aria Lee, come to my office with me. The counselor's arrival was like a shot of adrenaline for Fin Chun. He immediately put on a look of deep sorrow, pointed at me, and even let a tremor creep into his voice. Teacher, you're just in time. I never thought Aria Lee would be this kind of person. I'm utterly disappointed in her. Willow Song beside him quickly chimed in, whispering to those around them. Fin is just too kind. That's why he got tricked so badly by her. They echoed each other perfectly, nailing me to the pillar of shame. The counselor's expression darkened further, looking at me as if I were hopeless trash. My heart sank inch by inch into an icy abyss. Now I knew exactly what it meant to have no way to defend oneself. Just as the invisible pressure was about to crush me, a voice cold as ice cut through all the noise. Who is taking her away? The crowd automatically parted to make a path. A tall figure walked over against the light. Military boots struck the ground with steady, powerful thuds, each step seeming to press down on everyone's heart. It was Felix Liu. He was dressed in a crisp military uniform, the shoulder insignia glinting gold in the sunlight. His strikingly handsome, sharp face was covered in a layer of frost, his gaze sweeping over the crowd like a blade. The noisy crowd fell dead silent in an instant. The triumphant look on Fin Chun's face froze completely. The counselor also stood rooted to the spot, subconsciously pushing up her glasses. Felix Liu walked straight over to me without glancing sideways. His tall frame shielded me entirely, blocking all the hostile stares. He did not spare Fin Chun a single glance, fixing his eyes only on the counselor. His tone was calm yet carried undeniable authority. I am Aria Lee's uncle. He then took out a neatly folded paper and handed it to the counselor. This is her emergency medical record from the Military General Hospital last night. Acute high fever convulsion caused by severe allergic reaction. Do you need me to call the attending doctor here to confront you face to face? The counselor's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Fin Chun opened his mouth but could not utter a single word. Only then did Felix Liu turn his gaze to me. The icy coldness in his eyes softened the moment it met mine. He took out a velvet box and opened it before me. Inside lay a woman's wristwatch. Aria, this is your belated birthday gift. I went to deliver her gift last night and found she'd suffered a sudden severe food allergy. I personally sent her to the hospital in an emergency. His explanation was flawless. Fin Chun's complexion shifted from pale to green, then to dark black, a marvelous display of emotions. Public opinion reversed completely in an instant. So it was just a food allergy. We almost wronged an innocent person. I always thought Aria Lee wasn't that kind of person. Fin Chun sure can make up lies. I always thought Aria Lee wasn't that kind of person. Fin Chun sure can make up lies. Felix Liu's slender fingers lightly rested on my shoulder. The scorching heat seeped through the thin fabric of my clothes. I trembled all over, clearly realizing one thing. He had covered for me with a perfect lie. A lie that belonged only to the two of us. The murmurs around us faded into a fearful silence. Felix Liu's palm stayed on my shoulder, its warmth steadying my unsteady body. Without looking at anyone else, he led me through the crowd that parted for us. I got into his black off-road vehicle. The moment the door closed, it shut off all prying eyes from outside. The car's interior felt confined. His cold pine scent permeated every corner, mixed with a faint trace of tobacco, wrapping me tightly in its hold. It was the same scent from last night. My cheeks burned uncontrollably. Neither of us spoke, and heavy silence hung thick in the carriage. After a long while he lit a cigarette but did not smoke it, simply holding it between his fingers as wispy smoke curled upward. Arya. He finally spoke, his voice far hoarser than it had been in front of the crowd. What happened last night? I was no better than a beast. My heart skipped a beat, and I looked up at him abruptly. He did not meet my eyes. The sharp lines of his profile looked especially rigid and unbearably pained, in the flickering glow of the cigarette. I watched you grow up, from a schoolgirl to who you are now. I kept telling myself I'm your elder, your uncle. I must never cross that line. His voice was low, as if speaking of something unrelated to himself. Yet the slight trembling of his knuckles betrayed his turbulent emotions. I applied for missions in the most dangerous war zones, hoping to erase you from my mind entirely. I thought if I stayed far enough away, and enough time passed, I would eventually forget. Light and shadow from outside the window swept across his sharp brow, casting layers of gloom. But one phone call from you, one simple sentence, uncle, I feel terrible. He crushed the cigarette butt hard into the car ashtray with a sharp click. All my defenses crumbled to dust in an instant. My mind went completely blank. So his estrangement over the years had never been indifference. Beneath his strict self-discipline lay such overwhelming hidden affection. The absurdity and shame of last night were redefined by his words. It had never been just an accident, but a long-suppressed loss of control. My heart raced wildly, pounding against my throat. Dependence, gratitude, and an inexplicable fluttering restlessness grew wildly inside me. The carriage fell into dead silence once more. He leaned back against the seat like a sculpture drained of all strength, eyes tightly closed. His Adam's apple rolled, and his entire aura exuded a despair suppressed to the breaking point. I stared at him. The man who had shielded me with a lie. The man who endured the torment of forbidden love alone. A sharp ache spread through my chest. I reached out tremblingly and gently placed my hand over his clenched fist resting on the gear shift. He jolted as if burned, opening his eyes wide in an instant. Within those dark pupils lay shock, restraint, and a deep, swirling abyss that threatened to pull me in entirely. I did not flinch. Meeting his gaze directly, I asked softly in a voice only the two of us could hear. Uncle, all these years, have you been hurting? My words hung in the confined carriage like a needle piercing his taut pretense. Felix Liu's body went rigid all over. His tightly shut eyes flew open, revealing raging waves of emotion, an abyss of longing suppressed for a full decade. He did not answer. The air froze, even the lingering smell of tobacco seeming to stand still. The next second, his large hand tightened abruptly around my wrist. His other hand clamped firmly under my chin, forcing me to lift my head. His scent crashed over me overwhelmingly. The kiss came with punishing force, grinding against my lips, parting them, and stealing every breath from my lungs. It was not gentle, not tentative. It was loss of control, a declaration. The volcanic possessiveness of a man who had restrained his feelings for 10 long years. I did not struggle, letting myself sink into the storm. I answered him with a kiss equally out of control. A week later, a financial news report shook the entire business school. The Chun Group has been reported under real name accusation of massive financial fraud and tax evasion. Core account evidence is conclusive. Its listing plan has been completely suspended, and economic investigation authorities have stepped in to take over the case. On the screen, Chun Group's stock plummeted sharply in a steep downward curve. Inside the dormitory, Willow Song's sobs could be heard clearly through the door. My phone vibrated non-stop with hysterical text messages from Fin Chun. Arya Lee, you did this, didn't you? You bitch, who's the powerful person backing you? I beg you, spare my family. I'll even kneel down for you. I stared at the words on the screen and pressed delete without the slightest emotion. Calmly I packed my belongings, walked out of the school gate, and headed for the military family apartment I had grown familiar with. The door opened the moment I rang the doorbell once. Felix Liu wore a simple black t-shirt and army green trousers, his figure straight as a pine tree. The sharp coldness around him was gone, replaced by a gentle domestic warmth. A smile flickered in his dark eyes when he saw me, and he naturally took the bag from my hand. You're back. I nodded, slipped into the women's slippers he had already prepared, and followed him into the living room. On the coffee table sat a laptop displaying the glaring news about the Chun group. He did not close it, nor did he offer any explanation. It was as trivial as checking the weather forecast. I walked up to him and looked up into his face. I saw what happened to Fin Chun's family. Felix Lu's gaze settled on my face, his deep eyes hiding unfathomable emotions. He raised his hand, his fingertips gently brushing my cheek with the tenderness reserved for a priceless treasure. He crossed someone he shouldn't have touched. His voice was quiet yet carried the unquestionable tone of judgment. He leaned down slightly, his tall frame enveloping me completely, warm breath brushing against my ear. Arya, no one in this world is allowed to wrong you. Not in the past, not now, and never. In the future. My heart trembled. I took the initiative to wrap my arms around his firm waist. I buried my face against his chest, breathing in the faint soap scent on his skin, listening to his steady, powerful heartbeat. This time I did not run away. I nestled against his chest, greedily drinking in the peace that belonged only to me. After a long while, Felix Lu released me and led me over to sit on the sofa. The laptop with the news still open sat right in front of us. Do you want to know how I did it? He asked. I nodded, my heart pounding wildly. He did not go into lengthy explanation. He simply scrolled up the news page to reveal the media outlet's signature at the bottom of the financial report. Beneath it was an almost unnoticed investor logo. A gilded capital letter L. The Lu family of the capital. He uttered 4 words, dropping them like a depth charge into the lake of my heart. Has your father never told you about them? My mind buzzed into complete blankness. The Lu family of the capital, a legendary colossal clan, whose slightest move could send shockwaves through the entire business world. So the uncle I had known for 10 years was actually... I stared at him. The man before me still had the familiar handsome face, yet he seemed shrouded in an unfamiliar, awe-inspiring aura. When dealing with someone like Fin Chun, he met my stunned gaze, his fingertips brushing gently over the corner of my mouth. His eyes deep as the ocean. A mere warning is not enough. It will only make him think you are weak and easy to bully. You must strike fatally, leaving him with no chance to rise again, never able to show up before you and offend your eyes evermore. His voice was soft yet laced with ruthless resolve to eliminate all traces of an enemy. Just then, a news alert popped up at the bottom right corner of the computer screen. The headline blazed sharply. Latest update on the Chun Group case. Victim's best friend Willow Song turns against them, providing key evidence of Fin Chun's dissolute private life. In the photo, Willow Song was in tears, surrounded by a crowd of reporters. She had actually betrayed Fin Chun. I glanced instinctively at Felix Lu. He only cast a casual glance, not a flicker of emotion in his dark pupils, as if he had foreseen all of this long ago. He reached out and snapped the laptop shut with a click, shutting out all the noise and ugliness of the outside world. The next second, he gripped my chin, forcing me to lift my head and meet his gaze. His presence wrapped around me overwhelmingly. Arya, leave the messy cleanup to me. You only need to. His burning lips pressed to my forehead, his voice low and hoarse, carrying an unyielding declaration. Just watch me. From then on, I moved into Felix Lu's apartment. Fin Chun and Willow Song vanished like dust swept away by the wind, never reappearing in my life again. The forbidden, ambiguous boundary between Felix Lu and me was broken down by his own doing, and everything afterward felt only natural. He would ask me the night before what I wanted to eat the next day, and while I was still lingering in bed, the aroma of cooking would drift from the kitchen. He would carry me silently to the study sofa, then sit beside me dealing with military documents I could never understand, letting me rest my head on his lap and watch movies. The air no longer held tense tension, only an indulgent, almost suffocating tenderness. On the weekend, he drove me back to the old Lu family mansion on the outskirts of the capital. It was a quiet, solemn courtyard house hidden deep in the suburban woods, with armed guards standing at the gate. It dawned on me belatedly that the uncle I knew and the real Felix Lu belonged to 2 entirely different worlds. His parents, a gentle and refined couple, showed no surprise at seeing me. Felix Lu's mother took my hand, her eyes reddening, her voice full of tender pity. Dear child, you've suffered all these years. I stood frozen in place. Felix Lu wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on the top of my head, his tone softer than ever before. Father, mother, this is Arya Lee, my fiancée. After returning from the Lu mansion, I felt as if I were walking on clouds. Happiness had come too fast and too full, bordering on surreal. On Wednesday afternoon I went alone to the school library to return books. By the time I walked out of the school gate, the sky had already grown dim. As I turned into the path leading back to the apartment, a black van stopped abruptly right in front of me, its sliding door flung open with a crash. Before I could react, a rough, large hand clamped tightly over my mouth and nose. A pungent chemical scent flooded my nostrils instantly. I only managed a short, muffled whimper before my consciousness sank into endless darkness. I woke up again inside an abandoned warehouse. My hands and feet were bound tightly to a chair with thick hemp rope, the bindings cutting sharply into my skin. The air reeked of rust and dust. A figure stepped out from the shadows. Backlit, I could not make out his face, only his frenzied, distorted silhouette. Arya Lee, you're awake. This voice, it was Fin Chun. He looked far more haggard than the last time I saw him, sunken eye sockets, greasy hair sticking to his forehead, his eyes burning with poisoned madness. He stepped closer slowly, dragging an oil drum dripping with gasoline in his hand. You must be wondering how I still dare to come find you. He let out a hoarse, grating laugh like a rusted bellows. I've lost everything. My family is ruined, I'm homeless. All thanks to you and your precious uncle. I struggled, letting out angry growls from my throat. But he seemed to relish my helplessness, kicking my chair hard without warning. Don't be in such a hurry. Soon he'll come down to join me. He squatted down, the face that had once made my heart flutter now twisted into savagery. I reported him. Abusing power for personal gain, overstepping authority, using military connections to suppress private enterprises. Evidence? I fabricated some of it, and he did act against me in truth. Higher authorities would rather investigate thoroughly than let any wrongdoing slide. Right now he's under internal investigation. Soon he'll be stripped of his rank, dismissed from all duties, and become a criminal despised by everyone. At that moment, my blood turned cold inch by inch. A fear deeper than death crashed over me in overwhelming waves. My heart pounded wildly in my chest, not because I was in danger, but because of him. How could Felix Lu fall because of me? Despair surged like a tide, threatening to drown me completely. Just then, a sharp police siren wailed from far to near, suddenly piercing the silence outside the warehouse. Fin Chun's face turned deathly pale in an instant. He twisted his head sharply, his eyes filled with the despair of a cornered beast. He lifted the oil drum and shouted hysterically, "It's too late. I'll make you die with me." He was about to splash the gasoline over me when the iron warehouse door burst open with a thunderous crash, forced inward by brute force. Blinding strong light flooded in at once, accompanied by quick, powerful footsteps. A tall figure stood backlit, the golden insignia on his epaulettes glinting amid floating dust. It was Felix Lu. His handsome, sharp features were now frosted over with cold fury, his dark ablaze with two raging fires brimming with world-shaking rage. Behind him, special police officers charged in with disciplined precision, seizing control of the scene in an instant. Fin Chun froze on the spot. The oil drum in his hand clanged to the ground, gasoline spilling everywhere. He stood rigid as a statue, his eyes filled with nothing but overwhelming terror. Felix Lu did not spare him a single glance, walking straight toward me. He dropped to one knee, his slender fingers swiftly and precisely untying the rope around my wrists. The rough hemp rope had left red marks on my skin. He stroked them gently, his gaze filled with heartache so deep it could drown me. "Arya, you're safe now." His voice trembled almost imperceptibly as he pulled me tightly into his arms. The familiar reassuring pine scent enveloped me, chasing away all fear and cold. I clung tightly to the front of his tactical uniform. burying my face against his broad chest, greedily drinking in this regained warmth. You're supposed to be under investigation? I asked in a tearful, hoarse voice. He patted my back gently, his low voice murmuring beside my ear. Silly girl. It was all a trap to lure the snake out of its hole. I lifted my head sharply, meeting his deep eyes. The light in his gaze was sharper than usual, laced with quiet calculation. I received intelligence that Fin Chun had been secretly gathering information on me, plotting revenge. He spoke casually, as if merely talking about the weather. Since he wanted to play a game, I decided to play a bigger one with him. His tone was steady, yet edged with unshakable ruthlessness. I finally understood he had never been passive. From start to finish, he had always been the one pulling the strings. As Fin Chun was led away by the special police, he kept cursing loudly, his voice fading quickly outside the warehouse. Felix Liu carried me to the car and treated the rope marks on my wrists with a first aid kit. His movements were gentle, his gaze focused, as if handling a fragile treasure. Willow Song. I hesitated, recalling her tearful appearance in the news. Why did she betray Fin Chun? Felix Liu paused his movements, looking up at me with profound eyes. She didn't betray him. She was avenging herself. He explained briefly. The Song and Chun families were once close allies. Years ago, Fin Chun's father schemed to annex the Song family's business, framing them up and ruining their entire household. Willow Song's parents could not bear the blow and passed away one after another. I stared at him in shock. So Willow Song had approached Fin Chun for this reason all along. Willow Song endured in silence for years, waiting for this exact day. There was no trace of sympathy in Felix Liu's voice, only a plain statement of facts. She had long been gathering evidence of the Chun family's crimes, yet she never had the right opportunity. He leaned slightly closer, his warm breath brushing my ear in a low, bewitching murmur. I merely went with the flow and gave her a chance to speed up her revenge. I looked at him, at his calm face that held immense power beneath the surface. He was not merely a soldier relying on brute strength. His wisdom and strategy ran far deeper than his combat skills. He was like a master player standing outside the chessboard, quietly watching everyone's performance, then moving the pieces at the perfect moment to bring everything to an end. I leaned forward voluntarily, resting my head on his shoulder. Uncle, I called softly. He tightened his arms, holding me even closer. Back at the apartment, Felix Liu did not turn on the lights. He set me down on the living room sofa and knelt halfway before me. By the faint moonlight filtering through the window, he traced the lines of my features slowly. Within those deep pupils swelled overwhelming, lingering fear and the ecstasy of having me back. Arya, he spoke, his voice hoarse as if scraped by sandpaper. Marry me. It was not a question but a statement, like an unalterable military order, yet laced with the humblest plea. My heart thudded heavily in my chest, sending numbing tingles through every limb and bone. Tears slid down my cheeks without warning. I nodded hard and threw myself into his arms. Yes, one single word, the firmest answer of my life. He held me even tighter, his strength nearly crushing me into his very bones. 3 days later, Felix Liu took me back to my home. My parents sat on the sofa, looking at us standing side by side with complicated expressions. My mother's eyes turned red first. She took my hand, tears streaming down her face, unable to utter a single word. My father, a soldier always stern and unyielding, watched his most outstanding subordinate and closest comrade in arms, now holding the hand of his only daughter. He fell silent for a long while, lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, and slowly exhaled the smoke. A heavy atmosphere hung thick in the air. In the end, he looked toward Felix Liu, his gaze filled with relief, emotion, and the helplessness of a father. Felix, my father spoke in a low, solemn voice. From now on, will you call me elder brother or father? His words instantly swept away the heavy mood in the room. My mother laughed through her tears, and gave my father a light punch. Felix Liu stood straight, faced my father solemnly, and called out clearly and firmly, Father. The most profound warning this story imparts is that we must never lose our sense of judgment towards others, and the bottom line of self-protection in a relationship. The heroine gave her whole heart for 3 years, only to face malicious scheming from her boyfriend and best friend, which nearly destroyed her life. It teaches us that false love is always wrapped in a blade of selfishness, and a genuine intimate relationship never lies in one-sided dedication and blind obedience, but in mutual respect and adherence to principles. When confronted with malicious harm, do not be trapped by rumors and self-doubt. The key to breaking the deadlock is to bravely seek help and stay sober. Loving yourself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. At no time should you surrender your dignity and bottom line for someone unworthy.